So hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Detour podcast. So let's face it, we're all in the middle of a global pandemic. And for many of us, we've been struggling with the restrictions, especially down here in Victoria and Melbourne, which have impacted our day-to-day lives. So we need more stories to motivate us and to inspire us. So I've got a story that this is a wonderful chance to say something pretty special. We want to refuel that tank and move forward. So there's no better underdog story than that in the history of Australian cycling than Cadel Evans. We all know that Cadel won the Tour de France in 2011. Former world number one mountain bike rider, he switched to the road for immediate success. However, it was never delivered on a silver plate for our Aussie superstar. And we'd look to hear the real story of that tour where the Aussie battler beat the world. So, Cadel, welcome. It's been almost 10 years, mate, since you won the Tour de France. Does it feel just like yesterday when you were celebrating in Paris?
Oh, good day, John. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me along today. And does it feel like just yesterday? Few years have passed. They've passed quickly. Not quite yesterday, but it's still a lot of it's fresh in my mind of course, that year in 2011. But of course, a lot of people think of 2011 and my career, but also I had a lot of races before that and a lot of races after that as well. So that my memory's probably not. I wouldn't say maybe it's fair to say diluted a little bit by the other 8 Tour de France's I rode for GC or the 4 Vueltas or the 4 Giros or whatever. And, I had a few other years in my career. It wasn't all just wasn't all just roses. One thing, if I can just quickly add on, one thing when you do stop racing is people remember the races you won, not all the races you lost. So I won about 50 and I lost about 650 international races on the road, I think. So let's remember the 50 I won.
Well, like most people, I suppose, I think only Eddie Merckx had a close to a 50-50 win-loss ratio. But so before we'll go into a lot of that, but before we get onto that, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns and rides. Bike Exchange, where a bike is never just a bike. At the moment, Cadel, in Australia, bike sales are going through the roof. I've never seen so many people out on bikes. Is it similar there in Switzerland?
It's been. I work in the industry now, so I see it from that side as well. And actually, I know Sam and Jason from Bike Exchange well. And of course, I'm buying some stuff online myself because having just been in lockdown, where I've been in Switzerland for this period, and we've already had our lockdown. Yeah. Same thing. But no, it's been a real like we spoke before. I think people are becoming to just go back to the basics in life. And one thing that they had in the lockdown period where I am in Switzerland, just over the border from Italy, where it was a real lockdown, was everyone was out walking their dogs or riding bikes. I had to change my roads that I rode on because there were too many people around and we're trying to social distance. But there were so many people out in the normal roads I ride on were small and narrow, and there were so many people riding and walking that I sort of had to find myself some different roads that were less frequented. But no, overall the bike industry is actually going really quite well. Well, those of which who can sell online are going well. Obviously,
yes, exactly. So that's why Bike Exchange. Well, the bike shops here are open. So, not so much in Melbourne, but the rest of Victoria. But there's not many of the cheaper, anything under $1,000. So Bike Exchange is the way to go. Our other great partner is Let's Go Motorhomes. Another Jerry company. So get out and explore your backyard, hire a Let's Go motorhome or camper van for your next great escape and takes the bikes along with you. So even though no one from overseas can get here and hire a Let's Go at the moment, the domestic market's going really well. And then we've got a special coming on. Here's one for you, Cadel, the early bird special. So book 90 days in advance and get 5% off your next Aussie adventure. So just get onto the Let's Go Motorhomes website. And Andrew in at Let's Go Motorhome said to tell you, Cadel, next time you're out, just let him know, and you can have a Let's Go Motorhome go for a family holiday, drive to that special place you'd like to go. Probably not the Great Ocean Road. You've seen plenty of that.
Well, I want to see plenty more, though. That's where I'd start, on the Great Ocean Road. Funnily enough, with all these things that are going on in the world, same. Put everything in there: kids, bikes, food. Yeah. Off you go. You don't have to depend on anyone. You don't have to come in contact with anyone either, which is well already. Before the pandemic, I was happy to do that, but even more so now.
Well, there you go. So I'll tell him to expect a call when straight after the
when they open the borders again.
Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. Yeah.
When they open the borders again.
Exactly.
I'll be back.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and Lexus of Blackburn, our great partner, they've been fantastic sponsor of cycling. They sponsored the women's section of the Herald Sun Tour, the Bay Crits last year, and they were a sponsor of your event, the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, supplied the cars for that. So great partners, the Moore family, and I know you know Andrew and Sarah.
Another Andrew, yep. I know them well. Andrew. I know them very well. Yeah. Another Andrew. I've known Andrew for a long, long time. And funny, when you're running a bike race, it's amazing how many cars you need. It doesn't sound right, but Andrew's been a great supporter of us, and I've known Andrew for 20, 30 years. I think it's been a long working relationship.
Yeah, great people and fantastic sponsors. So, Cadel, let's dive into 2011 Tour de France. So before we got to July 1, get your mindset leading into that season. You changed your race schedule a fair bit that year. You didn't do the Tour Down Under. You didn't start racing until March. I think Torino was your first race. So what were the discussions with the team leading into that?
I'd gone back to a dedicated Tour de France program, which was sort of similar to what I did 2007, 2008, 2009. Well, 2007, 2008 was where I had my say what I wanted to do. Because 2010, I just joined the BMC team. We didn't have a start at the tour that year because we weren't a pro tour team then. So we were depending on invites to get into Grand Tours. Which was a little bit on the start of the year, and I had the rainbow jersey, and we could race it Tour Down Under and get the season started. Was the 2010 sort of build up. 2011, we switched more to the tour focus because we knew we were going to ride in the tour, and we could focus on it, and therefore we could plan for it. And so I went back to a tour dedicated program, which basically just means just starting on a bit later. So when you come into your best, you come into your best later in the season. And of course, I like to ride the Ardennes Classics, but that wasn't my job. We had guys like George Hincapie and Alessandro Bellan to ride to ride in sort of more so Flanders, Roubaix, these kinds of races. So my job was to perform at the Tour, and I started. I think my very first race was Tour of Friuli, just before Tirreno Adriatico, and then Tirreno Adriatico was the first big appointment of the year.
So you were really in great form with those in Torino and Romandy. So did you feel that everything was really on track? I mean, you did a great Dauphiné as well, really good battle with Bradley Wiggins. So how did you feel that your form was leading into that tour?
I think I'm just going to think back now. Obviously, Torino went well. We went in. It was just a year that I didn't have upsets in the off season. I could just train and relax. And one thing, I wasn't a favourite to win the tour, which we'll probably touch on later. But people just don't care about you, not as much anyway. Or they don't want your time as much when you're not a favourite for the tour, which is great when you're going for the tour, because it means you've got time and energy to do what you've got to do, and that's train and recover and spend time with your family and be a human being.
Well, I can remember as we were leading into that Tour de France, I remember riding for your local paper, there's a long addy saying, I believe that that this is the one that you could win. And being that I've been on all of your tours, the Tours de France anyway, that I was really excited about it. But all the talk in most of the media was about Contador, Wiggins, the Slecks. Do you reckon this worked in your favour?
I certainly, it's a little, probably a personal thing for me. I didn't actually like being a favourite for the tour, but also, like I said, people just leave you alone. You could just focus on what you needed to do. Being a favourite for the tour and being talked up in the press, that doesn't help you ride a better Tour de France. Some people, it might motivate them or give them confidence, but for me, it just distracts from the task at hand, and that's training for, preparing for, and racing the tour. One thing that I think was sort of, which I see a little bit short-sighted by a lot of people seem to forget that in 2007, I was second by 23 seconds. 2008, I was second by 51 seconds, I think. 2009, we lost 2 minutes in the team time trial, but I could see that from a long way out, and I knew we weren't going to be in with a chance that year. 2010, I rode the Giro. I went to the Tour, good. We took 2 minutes on Contador, who was looking to be the guy to beat for the Tour on the pavé in the stage and over the cobbles. And then I think it was one day after the cobbles, 2 days after the cobbles, I had this stupid little crash. Landed on my elbow, broke my elbow. Finished the stage, rode into yellow, and next day or the next stage started in the yellow jersey, but I had a broken arm. I didn't tell anyone about it, but I was in a fantastic position to win that tour in 2010. But people seem to have forgotten that very quickly, which in my plan in what we wanted to do in 2011 was just fine.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, you seemed very relaxed at that press conference at the start of the 2011 tour. And I'd been to all of your press conferences at the start of everyone. I think that was about the sixth tour by then. And that was really noticeable to me. I said, gee, no, he really is in a great place mentally and ready for this. Also, your team was very happy with that. You had the special time trial bike, claiming it was going to be 2.5% faster. But how much effect did that team support have on you? You knew that this team was really right behind you in every way.
One thing probably why maybe I was relaxed in the 2011 tour was, well, all the work and preparation had been done. It had been done very well. And a big part of that is, to do it on your own is a bit of a task. I had a whole team dedicated to helping me and a whole team that believed in me for that tour. And from every little detail, from producing a new time trial bike and getting it ready so I could test it on the course in the Dauphiné Libéré, because it was the same time trial course that we were going to use in the tour, and choosing tyres and the gear ratios and everything. We'd already done all that. We'd done all the training camps and we'd done all the course reconnaissance, and we'd done it calmly, professionally, without making a fuss. And what had brought or sapped a lot of energy from me in past years was in other teams where I'd go to a training camp or something and they'd invite a TV channel along or a journalist, and they wouldn't tell me about it. And I'm sort of going, I also really enjoyed going to training camp or the course reconnaissance, because it was a moment that you could get away from that and focus on training, but just detach yourself from all the fuss that goes around the tour, because you need to. Well, some people love their fuss and attention, but not everyone does. And I like the solitude and just going out there and being on my own and preparing well, or preparing with a close team, with a teammate or something, doing the course reconnaissance or something. I really enjoyed that, but I depended on that time away to sort of recharge my batteries, and now years later I look back at it now and I can see the balance that I needed now that I've stepped away from it. But that was an important part of the balance that I needed to perform well. And we'd done all that, and the team, BMC racing team, understood that. John Lang understood that, the director. George Luchinger, who was the press officer for the team, which doesn't sound like much, but that's someone who can just really help you a lot when you're in the middle of the tour and you're going for yellow and you're in yellow. It's well, it'd take me an hour to describe it. It'd take me the whole podcast just to describe what it's like. But it's kind of a unique situation that not many people have experienced in the world. And when I say not many, a very, very, very small percentage of the population have received so much attention in such a short period of time, but also in such an important moment in your life. You're riding the Tour de France for the win. That alone requires a fair bit of concentration and energy.
It's funny, you mentioned, I'll just digress, you mentioned George's there, who was a fantastic guy. I really liked him. And he was really great for us Aussie journos. He knew that we need to try and get you here and there, so he would do our best. Whereas Serge, the other guy you mentioned, he was a bit different. He was like a strong arm. He'd belt us out of the way.
Which I like to work with George. I like to say Serge, for example, as a person, I liked him, but in the end, we're trying to get a job done, and part of my job is being available to the media. Now, I can't be available 24 hours a day, especially during the Tour de France, because I've got to race the Tour de France. But just managing that well and cleverly, it's in the end, we're a professional cycling team, and our job is to actually to get publicity for our sponsor. If we don't get that, then not much works. So obviously the whole media side of things is an important aspect of the job. But if you're not performing, no one actually wants. Nobody pays you much attention. So first of all, perform, and then take care of the other pieces, and everyone's happy.
Well, I could tell that year right from the start that you were in a really good place because you were very comfortable with the media, and from that opening stage where you ran second to Galibier in the opening stage,
little uphill finish,
yeah, and I could see that you weren't waiting for the mountains, you weren't messing around there. So and then you had the team time trial the day two. How were you nervous about that?
I went into it, and as a GC rider, I was sort of good everywhere, but I couldn't take big chunks of time. I could take time in the time trials, but I wasn't someone who, years gone by, there were some riders who could take a minute in each mountain stage or a minute or two in each time trial, whereas I could take a little bit here, a little bit there, but I could also take a few seconds in time bonuses. I could also sneak through some crosswinds and get 20 seconds here and 10 seconds there. But after 20 days, this adds up, and so my strength was more. I didn't have many weaknesses. But so that's where I'd go for a stage win against Galibier. I think there was some hold up or a crash or something. I got closed in. I remember when he went, and Galibier that was his year. To run second to him was by no means a bad effort, I'd say. But just to get a few seconds here and there was just all part of the strategy, and it gave, of course, me confidence. It gave my teammates confidence, and trust me, when you're going for the win of the Tour and you've lost it by 23 seconds. Any second on your rivals is a good second.
Yeah, for sure. So what was the stage where you pipped Contador by nothing? It was really almost a dead heat. He actually put his hand up, thought he won it. What stage was that?
Moody Britann, I think it was stage 8 or 9. I normally don't remember all the stages so well, but I've sort of recounted the 2011 Tour so many times that I might remember that. But it was, I had to change my bike with about 12 k's to go, and that was that just amazed me, the team, that they could get me from the back to the front and then to the foot of the Moody Britann, which was used, I think 2 years ago in the Tour. And it was a sort of a funny finish, because I remember, I think you sort of came in, it was slightly downhill into the village, and then you go up this little moor, but then I'm fighting for position against guys like Hushovd and Contador, and then you get to the top, and Hushovd is still in the group. But here's me, not as a sprinter, but here's a guy, winner of the green jersey, is in the group. But Contador's there, but I'm like, hang on, well, I'm still going to try. But normally it was a funny sprint. Like Hushov could make it, but he was absolutely on his limit just to be there. Whereas us climbers, we'd get over the climb with just a little bit reserved. We could recover a bit and just have a little punch at the end. Not a lot. Everyone sort of a lactate sprint, I suppose you could say, where and that's where Contador he probably should have watched a few more videos of sprinters and.
Well, you threw like a sprinter.
Throw it through the line.
Well, that's what you did. You threw it right on the line and got him by a tyre.
I wanted it in the throw more than anything. But that was sort of whereas Contador was a climber who could just, when he was at his best, he could just pelt anyone on the climbs and not lose time on the time trials, whereas I could sneak a few seconds here and there and in those kind of finishes.
And so that throws up the other part. I've been on, there was a terrible crash 9K to go on stage 1 with a spectator. It must be, and the road sprinters are all crazy, we know that, and they just don't seem to worry about it. But you guys must really worry. Once you get into that last 10K and the big bunch finishes, it must be the most nervous time of the whole tour. Yeah,
well, especially the first week, what creates a bit of the nervousness is, well, the sprinters know what they do, and they're very good at what they have to do. What happens when you get some climbers and some GC riders in the middle who don't quite know how to push and shove and be close and be careful, give space to the sprinters because they're going to beat you in the finish anyway. Stay out of their way is sort of an important part of that. But because a lot of people feel so uncomfortable in that situation, but they have to be there, they get nervous and they cause crashes, or they make other people nervous, which causes crashes, and it gets a bit. They say that the first week of the tour is nervous, but just you can be as calm as you want in a group of 180 nervous bike riders, but everyone's nervous and people are going to crash. Like the nerves. The people who are scared of crashing make it more dangerous and increase the risks of crashing. It's kind of a bit of a vicious circle, that one. After a week, everyone's too exhausted to be nervous, and so people calm down.
But it's a tough time because you guys can't just let the sprinters go for it, because the bunch splits and you can lose 10 seconds on another GC rider if you're in the wrong part of the bunch. So it's something you've got to be so on the ball with.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where you have to be there, and I try to be and be clear with the sprinters. Look, we just want to get through the 3K to go barrier. We won't let any, we just want to move up there. Then we're going to get out of your way and leave you to do your job. And of course, you have to stay in a position where someone's not going to. Some people do let the wheel go or something. If it's a little bit of wind or a little bit uphill or something, there's a chance it'll still split. But then everyone sort of can stay a bit safer. But sometimes getting to that 3K to go, and what's often dangerous is when there's a risk of a crash. Let's say 3.5 Ks to go, there's a narrow passage or a dangerous corner or something, and everyone wants to be there. That's where often you see problems, and normally a roundabout or something like that. And what's I think also happening, not only do we have more coverage of the races, so we have more people with their mobile phones filming crashes or onboard cameras on the bikes that capture more accidents and things, but the importance of the tour seems to always ever be increasing for the team and the sponsors. But also the spectator numbers this year obviously will be different, but are always increasing. But also just the way roads are designed and built now. I'm not a road engineer, but there's just so much clutter on the roads now, and road furniture, as we call it. There's poles and the south of France, all the roundabouts. They're all off camber. So if there's just a little bit wet, you're coming in on the apex of the corner, it's off camber. If it's off camber, trucks pass by there, and that's where they lose the oil. So there's oil on the road and things like this. So just these little things just all add together just to make things more dangerous. And if you race in Spain, they have these horrible, you often race on the freeways in the Vuelta, say, And all the on-ramps and off-ramps afterwards, they have these poles that are plastic on the outside, but they're steel on the inside, but they're sort of like waist height, but you can't see them in the peloton. So if you
Yeah.
pass an off-ramp and it's crosswind and you swing right because there's space on the side of the road, you're going to hit one of these poles at 50, 60 k an hour, and they're made of steel. They don't move. But you can't see them from inside the peloton, and there's just all these things on the road now. There's traffic islands that divide the lane dividers. They're only like 10, 15 centimeters high, but they cause big accidents, and that's ever increasing as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed that over probably the last 10 years, they've just been more and more, and especially in the south of France. Holland's had them forever, but now that road furniture is an issue. The other thing, of course, is the spectators themselves, because in the last 3K, okay, you got your barricades, but before that, you got big crowds, as you say, especially special spots, special corners and that. And, the spectators, it's bad enough on the mountains, but at least you're not going as quick. But when you're doing 60 k an hour racing to a stage finish, it's very, very dangerous with the spectators.
It can be. I think the spectators, you can normally see them though, and as a tour rider, you're skimming spectators, and the ones the most dangerous ones I see are often on a side of a road. Is people see the peloton coming and they get out of the road. You see someone who's at their first Tour de France, especially in the Lance Armstrong era. You'd see some American guys or something, and they're standing in the crowd on the side of the road. The whole crowd moves, and there's one like American guy looking the other way to see where Lance is. He was riding at the front behind the postal service train or whatever, but he's standing in the middle of the road. Yeah. And everyone else has stepped off the road, or everyone steps off the road and they leave their grandmother in a wheelchair, or their kid on their tricycle, or a baby in a pram or something like this, and you're just like, you're coming at them at 60 k's an hour, and you ride to the last centimetre of the road as a professional. Yeah. People stand 2 meters on the road thinking, here's the white line, they'll ride in there. No. When you're trying to move up the side of the peloton, until you're in the gravel, you're on the road. So you really use every centimetre of the road, and that's one thing that, in the first few years of the tour, it sort of amazed me a lot. But of course, something you have to get used to.
Well, in stage 9 of that year, with that famous crash where Johnny Hugeland into the TV car hit him and knocked him through the barbed wire fence. I mean, do you worry about rider safety in those sort of situations?
Well, as a rider, of course I did, and you see it from a rider's perspective, and you see those kinds of accidents, and you see so many near misses. Like the TV motorbikes, and they've got the panniers on the outside, or if you've got, like straight away in a Grand Tour, you see on the first or second or third day, you immediately see the numbers of the motorbikes, and you know who's a bad driver and who's a good driver. Graham Watson, the photographer, always had fantastic motorbikes. 20 years racing, never, ever, ever had an issue with him. But then there are some other photographers who had the worst drivers, and you knew straight away, okay, that one is dangerous. That guy doesn't know how to ride, or they're always trying to pass on the inside of the corners, or waiting after a blind corner on the exit of a corner or something. And then of course cars. Sometimes you have trucks and things that are parked a little bit on the side of the road, which hang onto the road, But bad drivers, you learn pretty quickly. Even the directors, I remember, I had a bit of a blacklist in my mind. Sometimes you have to go back for bottles, or you're coming back through the peloton after a call to nature, and here's so-and-so director, stay out of his way because he doesn't seem to have his peripheral vision's limited or something like that. So you know who's good and bad.
Oh, here comes John Trevorrow in that press car. Look out.
Actually, so just going back to that Johnny Hugeland crash, like I was just watching the images from the Lombardy that just happened. It was a similar thing, actually. But Johnny Hugeland, he still has those scars on his legs today from the barbed wire fence. And that was someone who wasn't an accredited driver, wasn't accredited in the race. As I understood, it was someone for the technical aspect of the television or something, and they had to pass the peloton for some reason, but they'd probably never driven past the peloton in their life. Anyway.
Yeah, it was a French television,
learned.
French TV3 or whatever they were, car. So, you reckon they would have got the right bloke?
Yeah. The amount they pay for the TV rights, you think they know, wouldn't you? Anyway.
Now, I want to get, I got to say, we're going to start talking about a couple of days that are etched in my memory. I know they're etched in yours. Whenever I talk about a bike race and the hair stands up the back of my neck, nothing is bigger than the stage 18 that day up the Galibier. And I've got through a bit of a spiel here, and then I'll get you to take us through it, because you were second on GC to Tommy Vockler. The slicks were the danger, sitting third and fourth. 200 kilometre stage with 3 hill climbs, finishing on the Galibier. I spoke with Stewie in a podcast recently, and he said how they'd formulated a plan. Did you know that you were going onto that day? That there was an ambush on the cards?
Well, when I think it was the Col d'Izoard, was it? Before Briançon, that they went on the front and they started riding. And I was like, oh God, what's going on here? And they're expending a lot of energy. I'm like, no, they're not going to do that. Oh, good luck. One thing, because for me in my course reconnaissance, I saw and the valley through Briançon towards the Col de Lotteret is it's always headwind. So I was like, well, you can try that, but in that our breakaway there has little or no chance, because the amount of energy to stay away from the group into that headwind and then crying out the Lotteret onto the Galibier, that isn't going to work. And what it nearly did work for them. It was a great effort that they did. One thing, a couple of things that sort of made it work so well was, one, they exhausted so many people on the Izoard that there was already a pretty big selection before the start of the Lotteret, which leads to the Galibier. So in the valley between Izoard and the Lotteret and Galibier, there's sort of one climb leads to another, so it's not like they're two separate climbs. Yeah. Basically, the road starts going up and it keeps going up. So in my mind, as someone who's got a pedal up there, that stands for one climb, a very long climb. But there was no one left to chase in that valley from Briançon, because there was only like leaders left. And so that certainly worked to Andy Schleck's advantage. And also, I don't know why, but the breakaway worked really well together. And another thing that
he had two teammates in that breakaway.
I didn't really had two.
He had two. Yeah,
two teammates, but also the wind. There's so many spectators. There's so many campers parked on both sides of the road. It was actually quite protected from the wind. Which you go there and course reconnaissance. Oh, look, the wind always blows this way, or if it's windy, it blows one direction. And then you get there, and it's like there's no headwind here. So that also countered that. That was. It's a small difference, but it's the small differences that make a difference in the end, because we're riding flat out in front and behind. And then, so when we started the Galibier or the Lotteret, it was Contador came to me. We should ride here because we're gonna lose the Tour, and it was actually Contador who started the chase, and then I took over, and from that point, I had to take into hand. Vockler wasn't going to help me. In the end, after the selection had been made, the only rider in the group that had a teammate was Vockler. There was no way he was going to help me win the Tour. He'd rather lose his place on the podium than help me win, which he finished fourth, funnily enough, in that Tour. So I was just left on my own devices, and what for me was the important thing was I had the legs to ride and bring Andy back. But I had to also defend in the final against Frank Schleck, who's not only his teammate, but also his brother, who's on my wheel and has been sitting on my wheel for like 9 Ks up the Galibier. So it was a bit, I had to ride pretty hard to make a selection of who was left, bring Andy Schleck back, but also to keep something in reserve because I was expecting Frank Schleck to attack me in the final kilometre. So so it was just a bit of well, my thing was, I think it was 2011. It was about 18 years since my first bike race, and I think everything I learnt in that 18 years, I'd put to use that in that 9.5 kilometres up to the finish of the Galibier. But mainly there, just you've got to win or lose the tour in the thing. The main thing is the experience to stay calm and do what you got to do, and not, because also Vauclair and these guys, they're trying to make you nervous and things. You just have to stay calm and stay focused, which is actually a lot easier said than done.
Well, you might have been staying calm, and you've made that sound like, oh, that was pretty easy day. But my recollection, sitting in the press centre, we're watching it, and that got out to over 4 minutes, because when Andy got to that front group, he had two teammates who buried themselves in that valley, as you were talking about.
Yeah, on the valley, right, and then he went on.
So it went from a minute and a half, 4 minutes, it got out to 4 minutes, and then he went away on his own on the climb. So you had, and as you said, Contador had been working with you. He'd stopped. I didn't know that he was a bit knackered. He obviously was. And everyone else was sitting there, and I'm thinking, you're doing all this work, not knowing that you had a lot in the tank, and thinking, like you were saying, they're going to hit you in the last 3 or 4K, but you'd just driven them all. They were just, and suddenly I started watching them going off the back. I thought, hang on, this is not what I thought at all.
Well, yeah, I was riding, if I may say so myself, I was riding pretty well. And so I could keep them all on the limit so they wouldn't attack me whilst bringing back time. But like I said, I had to keep something reserved for the last kilometre. But also going up there, and like I had Jean Lelang was my director, and the radio in my ear giving me the time checks and what's going on. But of course, anyone who's ridden a bike would know, and especially if you watch the tour in that period, when you're riding on the front for 5K and then your director comes into your ear on the radio and says, Contador's struggling, you've dropped Contador. Obviously, it gives you a certain amount of confidence that you're going pretty well. So oh, well, I've ridden Contador off the wheel on a climb in the tour. This is going well. Let's keep going. But like I said, everything came down, but it really was a mix of like the near misses and the losses that I'd had in the past, all these experiences put together, plus the fact obviously I was riding at a close to my best, if not at my best, keeping that all together. But like I said, it was really 18 years of racing experience put to use that day, and I think it was 9.5 kilometres or something from when we started the chase on the Lotte.
Look, I still get goosebumps thinking about that stage and the next stage, because the 2 days to me are the 2 days that define you in lots of ways. I mean, as you said, you've ridden a lot of tours before, and I think you should have won 2 others, but we won't go to that right now. But so the next day, you've got it's a very short day, but a monster day up d'Huez. So the pressure's on. Contador is having a day out. I think he was to make up for the day before, so he's up the road going for it. You suddenly have to stop with a bike issue, and I think you stopped twice before you ended up swapping your bike. Because I'm looking at you. You jump off, spin the wheel, seem fine, get going again, a problem. I'm thinking, oh no, there's something's wrong here. Is he just not feeling well? When you're really struggling, it does feel like the brake blocks are rubbing. So what actually happened in that moment?
Sometimes you have to be your own psychologist while you're in these situations. And it's like, is it my head, or is it my legs, or is it the bike? Hang on a second, let's just check. Well, hang on, I think it's the bike. Well, at least even if the bike doesn't have a problem, if I change it, that's going to fix the problem that's in my head. And then I've only got my legs to blame, right? No, I think what happened, we had, because it was a mountain stage, and funnily enough, my bike for the mountains, which was like 10 grams off the weight limit or something, it was 150 grams lighter than my other bikes or something. But that was in the titanium quick releases and skewers. The way that they tension or something isn't the same. And what felt like happened was when I had to make my first big effort for the day, that the rear wheel moved within the frame. Because this is it's not through axle like we have now.
Okay.
But it felt like the when I went out of the saddle, the wheel was rubbing on either the chainstay or the brakes. The brakes I can't see, and it just felt like that when I was going out of the saddle. But of course, I've still got the Telegraph Galibier from that side is the longest climb in the race in the tour, and then you still got the Alpe d'Huez to ride afterwards. I'm like, I know the situation's critical, but I don't want to ride all this with this in my head. I'll just change my bike. Unfortunately, it was kind of a strange stage because we started, and I think it was 14 kilometres to the start of the left onto the Telegraph. Can't remember. Mondaine is the town name.
Yeah.
But it was 14 kilometres, and it's kind of mostly downhill. And then you hit this climb, and it was only a 150 kilometre stage, of which 60 kilometres was climbing. And so so we go in there, and for some reason I didn't start really well where I like as far to the front as I would have wanted to for that climb. But you're also 14 kilometres into the stage, so normally it's not much is going to happen. So it's not something that you get stressed about. But then I was a bit far back, and then I've seen Contador at the front. Oh, I've got to move up here. And then I actually could move up to be in a position. And then while I was doing this, all of a sudden something's happened, like making these efforts to move up. You're actually doing, I say move up, but you're doing these like 1,000-watt efforts between people getting dropped and on the start of this climb. And that's when, oh, hang on, I'm on my own. Marcus Bulger was out the front with the breakaway. But also all my teammates have sat up, our day's over now, because I've heard this story also from George Hinkerby's side. And so they're all just sitting down, oh, day's over, good luck, Cadel. And then on the radio, everyone to the front, Cadel needs to change his bike and get back to the breakaway or something. And so they're all of a sudden their days just completely changed around again. But then same well-drilled team. We knew exactly what we had to do. We stayed calm. Boogie was coming back from the breakaway. And basically the guys just lined up on the front in exactly reverse order of who was the best to the worst climber. Steve Morabito was last guy who I followed, and I just said, can you get me within 30 seconds of, I think it was Sam Sanchez, within the last kilometre of the top, because then if I can't bridge in the last kilometre alone, I hope to, well, I've got to close the gap on the downhill now. But my thing was, if I can get to him by the top, I know he'll get back onto the group on the downhill. Yeah. So easier said than done, but everyone they just peeled. They did a maximum effort turn for as long as fast as they could. They pulled off, and that was their day over basically, because they gave everything for that. And then I got back with inside of Sanchez. I got back to him just going over the top. It caught me off guard. I thought we were going to go over the top, but we went through the tunnel. So we didn't actually go right to the top of the climb. There's a little tunnel that goes through there. And I thought I had still a bit more climbing to go. And I'm like, oh, no, we're going through the tunnel. Whoops, it's a bit shorter. Hurry up, and you get into this tunnel. Where is he? It's pitch black in the tunnel. You can't even see where he is. And then I don't know if I got onto him in the tunnel or on the start of the downhill, but then we had to descend to get back to the guys in front.
And so we're watching it and thinking, that you're in trouble. And I'm thinking, oh, no, after, those 2 years where you almost won the tour, it all could be coming apart now. But obviously you weren't in trouble. You were feeling fine. I thought all you'd done the night before up to get the top of Galibier might have been paying on you, but obviously you felt good.
Oh, yeah. Well, my thing in the tour from the outside, it might look differently, but my thing in the tour is just stay calm, do what you've got to do. And that's all I used to say on the radio. Stay calm, kids. Stay calm, kids. Just calm down, everyone. We're going to need all the energy we can to ride up the Wes or something, rather than just being nervous and worrying about these other things or getting angry or arguing with people in the peloton or something. That's just energy wasted at that point.
So Contador obviously had a day out that day. It's strange that he actually got spat the day before, and he's come out probably angry and put up an enormous ride.
Yeah. Well, he went on an early aggressive attack because, like I said, he attacked like 15 kilometres into a mountain stage, but it was only, I think from memory, I say 150. Got the road book.
Oh, it was less. I think it was just.
Might have been
I think it was
120,
just over 105 or something. Yeah, it was really short.
I've got all the road books here. I should pull it out and have a look. I'll probably find it on Google earlier. But it was it was one of the sort of years before I rode the Tour. They did once have a short, sharp stage like this, but it was a bit of something different compared to all the tours I'd ridden in. So it was a very short and sharp stage. And the next day was the time trial, which was kind of, we had a long mountain stage, a short mountain stage, and then a hard time trial. It was a real, obviously an important 3 days, but also to manage physically, recovery and racing wise. And of course, what effort you make on one day, you normally pay the next, or the effort you made if you don't pay the next day, you pay the day after. But the first day in the mountains, time trial, maybe that's where Andy Schleck's great effort on the first passage of Galibier, maybe he was paying for that in the time trial, who knows? But it's it was a difficult 3 days to manage.
So then the tables are turned as we start getting into up to Ayres, corridors up the road. The Schlecks are having to do some work, and they start. I saw one of them turn to you and ask you to sort of put in, and you just gave a shake of the head and a big smirk. I thought you must have felt pretty good with that. You're also being a sports psychologist, not only of yourself but of your competitors as well. It's like, I thought you were worried. Now I'm sure you are. So I'm thinking about the time trial the next day. I just didn't want to lose time that day, and save myself for the time trial the next day. So that was for me another sign that things were going in our favour towards the time trial the next day. It's I'll just quickly touch on that. Like, we speak about Frank and Andy and this, where Frank and I we're good friends now. We see each other at events, we ride together, we catch up afterwards, and we have a beer together and laugh together. I go to his ride every year. We're actually really good friends now, so it's a nice circle. But I'm going on 9 years after all this went on. But anyway. And I thought they were very magnanimous in Paris too, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I can remember once, so you've crossed the line on top of Alpe d'Huez. You must have thought, I've got this now. You must have been pretty confident at that moment.
Yeah, I could see the efforts to take all these risks on the Izoard, to do absolutely everything that they can. They were really worried about the time trial, and as a rider, like years gone by, I'd gone into the time trial, but I'd gone in and I was injured, or I was going against a time trialist that was maybe nearly as good as me, or because normally I was as a GC rider, I was a bit more of a time trialist than climber, against like guys like Andy and Contador. And this time round, I was going into a time trial with a reasonable deficit, but someone who I think was kind of intimidated by me as a time trialist. So I went in, and my thing was to be as economic as possible with the team. I didn't want to be in the lead. I wanted to be sitting in second so that I could go into the time trial and then do everything. Funny, like everyone dreams of putting on the yellow jersey and things, and I'm like, well, I'm second at 1 second, or I'm second at 30 seconds or something. This is perfect. Let's just sit here. And so that was a big difference. But I could see both Andy and Frank were worried about the last time trial. They were doing everything that they could to increase their increase their advantage against me, but they couldn't increase it as much as they wanted to. So that just gave me even more reason to believe in the time trial.
And I can remember that night up on Alpe d'Huez, I was with a couple of Aussie mates who were walking down from one pub to another, as you do, and there was a not you, but as we do.
I don't know. I was in bed with my earplugs in, trying to go to sleep. But anyway,
well, there was this chalet that the Schleck family had booked. So all Andy and Frank's, their father, there was a cousin or nephew, whatever, and this huge crowd of Luxembourgians, is that what you call them, and there were thousands of them. And then dad was out on the balcony and they were yelling and screaming. There was music playing. So I have called Stewie just to stir him up. And it went to his answering machine on his phone. And I said, this is the Schleck family celebrating. You guys can celebrate tonight. We're going to celebrate tomorrow night. And hung up. And as I walk away, only a few minutes later, my phone rings and it's Stewie, but I didn't know he was sharing a room with Andy. And so I said, I said, g'day, Stewie. He said, it's not Stuart, it's Andy. I said, oh, yeah. And he said, get stuffed.
That's a nice story.
It was a good story, yeah.
Well, Andy rang me the next night, actually, and said, congratulations, you deserve that, which I thought was a really nice gesture. But anyway.
Well, I thought the both of them on the podium were really, you could tell that they, of course, they wanted to beat you, but they were quite fantastic in the way that they congratulated you. I thought that was pretty special.
Oh, it was, and like I said, there's a genuine friendship between us and respect, which is there hasn't always been. It's funny the competitors you have, but and I suppose I'd say Stewie has probably been the big part in that because they know Aussies and they understand our culture and mentality much more than most probably, and that would be a big part of it. But they're just nice guys. They're good guys.
So now we get to the time trial. So we're all excited. Every Aussie there is excited. We think you're going to win, but we've thought that a couple of times before, especially with Sastre. I mean, we always knew Condor would be a trouble, but I couldn't believe Sastre would pull out a time trial like he did. But so that with that playing in the back of everyone's minds, I remember walking through the enclosure where all the finish line TV crews and that are, and catching up with Mike Tomalaris, who was really nervous. He said, oh, yeah. I said, mate, it's done. He'll win this time trial, is what I said. Well, and you nearly did. But you put in an amazing ride that day. There just showed no signs of nerves. You just did an absolute belter of a time trial.
The main thing was, and this is where the team and the BMC the company, where all these, I've got to get going soon. These differences come in when you prepare everything well. You don't have reason to be nervous. But in years gone by, I've gone there and I go there with a time trial bike, and just in the bike alone, I've lost a minute. And I'm like, and this is before you even start a time trial. As a time trialist, it's kind of, it's nice to know that you've got either the best or equivalent to the best equipment to go there, because over 40K is just the wheels. You can make up there's a difference between the best and amongst the worst of like a minute or more on a few things like that. And that year we'd done everything from gear selection, tyre selection, all these things. I remember having this discussion. I was with him the other day. We still work together as being involved with BMC, the company still. He built me up got a new bike the other day. I'm very proud of that. I still get excited about a new bike. I got it from Stefano Catai is his name. He's an ex-rider, and you may know his name. And I remember having this discussion about the tyre selection for the time trial course that day, and of all the things, wheels and all the great frame and the position and all this stuff, and I was like, no, I'm riding a road front tyre. And they're like, but this is 40 seconds over 40 Ks on the flat. Yeah, on the flat, but I'm sure I'm going to get more than 40 seconds on the downhill if I've got a tyre that I can really put everything into, or really rely on. And so all this work had been done and been prepared. And one thing there, with every hurdle we'd had, whether it was the result in Tirreno or Romandier or the time trial in Dauphiné, or it was all just, for us as a team, we were doing all this, we were going through this together. And every time someone tried to or something tried to stop us from winning or performing well, we were overcoming it together. So we were just getting stronger and stronger as a unit. And so going into this time trial, it was everyone was just. I felt my teammates were looking forward to watching me ride this time trial, which is kind of nice. Sometimes I've been in teams in the past, and they're pissed at you as a rider because you're so high up in GC that their massage isn't going to be until late because the people have to wait behind until you finish your time trial because you're going like in the last 5. Isn't that the idea of riding GC at the tour? But this is sort of the feeling. Here's my teammates. They're sitting up all sweaty palmed in front of the TV in the bus watching the time trial together, cheering for me, as opposed to sort of having teammates angry at you because their masseur had to wait behind to show you where from the finish line to the team bus because you're so cross-eyed after the last time in the time trial. You can't even find your own way. And this is sort of also the difference. We just had a great ambience within the team, and this came from, and like, you know, Andy Reese, the late Andy Reese, who was a big part of BMC and all this together. And he's there, but he's there as a fan. He owns the bus, he owns the team. But he's there as a fan sitting in the car. This is good. Oh my God, don't crash. You know, this is him sitting in the car, just loving it. But here he is, like, excited. Oh, how are we going to go today? How's my new BMC bike going to go today? Oh, my little buddy Cadel, my little Aussie, is going to go out there and get him today. But this is like, it's like, yeah.
But they did get very nervous, didn't they, in the last couple of Ks? Because I think you probably would have won that time trial, even though you had the world's best time trial, only pipped you. But they were that nervous. The only way you could lose that tour was to fall off in one of those corners, and they were backing you off.
They stopped giving me time checks at 10K to go, and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? You know, and I sort of like, and the thing was, and John Lerlang's word was afterwards, my little joke in the bus was coming in the bus, John, what the hell? You didn't give me time checks. What the hell happened? And he's like, oh, objective was reached. And I think from in the car, when you're looking at it, it looked a bit like I was taking lots of risks or something. Let's not, his thing, okay, the objective is to win the tour, the time's done. Let's not, as a director, you're like, do I tell him he's 2 seconds down, he can win the stage, but then he risks on a corner and crashes and loses everything? Or no, I won't say anything because the objective's been reached, the goal's achieved, and okay, if you win, great, but running second to Tony Martin in a time trial by 2 seconds, but, we're there for the overall. Is that's all. It's let's not get greedy about these things. It was a good decision.
It was a good decision.
I don't feel that I was going to crash, but I could have squeezed out a few more seconds in those last few corners. That's for sure.
If you had have known, I'm sure you would have. Now I know you've got some commitments you have to go soon, but I've got a few things I've got to go through. I've got to say, one of the most special moments for me was that evening when you came into the press centre, which was in the Grenoble track, and. And it takes a fair while, but for you got to do presentations, drug control, all of those things. And probably nearly an hour by the time the race finished before you actually got to come in there. And everyone's got at least a 5-hour, 6-hour drive up to Paris, or you guys fly, but we had to drive. But everyone waited. And people who haven't been on the tour wouldn't realise that this room full of journalists, hundreds and hundreds of journos, a lot of them hard-nosed sports, not cycling journos, just hard-nosed journos. But they all waited. And I've been at 20-odd tours. Well, at that stage, I'd probably been to 17 tours. I'd never seen this. You walked in and the whole place stood up and applauded. It was absolutely so moving. What are your memories of that?
Well, I remember going in, but people have asked me about this. But of course, as a journalist, you go in there every year. I've never been in there before, so I had no idea what it was like. And I didn't even know it was under a velodrome. I'm like, here, there, get here. My life kind of changed ever since then, that moment, actually. Yeah. more after Paris. Anyway, so you go in and it's only been that I was told afterwards by other journalists that this was the case. I like your term hard-nosed journalist. So you mean all those tabloid ones that try to cover up problems and just searching for some rubbish to write about our sport or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
I know some of those. I make an effort when I go back to the tour to say hello to each and every one of them in person. None of them say hello back. I went in there and it was a little bit, now that I understand the significance of it because people have told me and people have been to other ones, because you win the tour, you go to that press conference, only the tour winner goes there and only won, so I only went to one. But I like to think of it as also as a bit of a moment. The sport was changing, and I'd like to think it was a bit of a moment of change between the mentality of the sport, the relationship between athletes and journalists, because we're all in this together. We all love the sport. Let's work together to enjoy it together, and we've all got our different jobs we've got to do, and they sometimes conflict, but let's try and help each other out where we can, and then we all enjoy it more in the end. But then I was kind of all because I remember they asked me about Aldo Sassi, and I was riding, I think yesterday or the day before, up one of his little circuits. My coach from years ago, who's no longer with us as well, unfortunately, and
beautiful man.
He passed away just November the year previous, so we're 8-9 months after his passing, and someone asked me about Aldo Sassi and this, and it sort of, then I was sort of like, maybe for me it was also a bit of a realization. I'm like, shit, he would have been so proud of us and everything we did. This preparation, the specific training, and all the time we'd spent in the velodrome, we're doing the position testing in the position and in the MAPE biomechanics lab and so on, working for the time trial position and all the altitude preparation, periodization and so on, which was all that was his life's work and his passion. And all of a sudden we put together in the one race that he hadn't won with an athlete that was really, for me, a huge moment, and a real, those 3 days was, like you said, it was a real summary of my whole career and who I know myself as a bike rider. You're sometimes portrayed as something you don't feel like you are, but that being on your own, test your limits, everything's on the line, win or lose, and then to be there, my mountain bike skills in the end of the time trial or something come out from 20 years previously, things like this, and it was really a summary of everything coming together in a couple of days. Funnily enough, a live broadcast around the world.
It's pretty special. Now, just last week, I interviewed Will Walker, and strangely enough, Will is just doing medicine. He's now a doctor in Geelong, and he was my son was in hospital with a bad asthma attack, and he was looking after my son. So we got talking. So we ended up doing the podcast, and he spent a lot of time talking about Aldo Sassi, how important he was in everything that Will did. Amazing man. Yeah.
He was well ahead of his time. He was very criticised in the 90s and early 2000s for who he was and what he did, but he was 10, 15 years ahead of his time was the thing. And unfortunately, when his time came, he had a brain tumour in the end, and it was just to see this guy that could do these mathematical calculations, which I still can't do today, but then sit down with a spreadsheet and not know what month we're looking at. In the end, that was such a sad demise to see.
Yeah, because he came to Geelong, didn't he? He came to the Worlds in Geelong and died only a few months later.
The Worlds, and he was advised not to travel and all these things, but he wanted to be there and he wanted to see the, and we won the rainbow jersey together and these things as well was the experience we got to share together. But he wanted to see that right through to the end. And I remember actually, because it was not long after the Worlds in Geelong, that it was just 2-3 months later, and I was there. And if I leave to the airport now, call my travel agent on the way to book a flight, I might get on that flight to get there. We're talking about to get into the other side of the world. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, hang on a second, what would he want me to do? I've been in this situation before where I was going to fly back to Australia for a funeral of a family member. He's like, no, stay here, train, do your season. And I was like, my grandfather. And then I was like, hang on, you'd like me to stay here, train and get ready and have the best season of my life. So that's
Yeah.
Because the thing was, you jump on a plane, go to the other side of the world, and you might not even get there in time. So it was a bit like, oh, okay, I'll stay here and I'll do that, because that's what, in the end, what I'm sure he would have wanted. And in the end, I just had the best season of my career.
So we're in Paris. You've got the yellow jersey and you're riding around the Champs-Élysées. What did that feel like, mate?
Quite surreal. But I was riding with my son yesterday, pushing him down the hill, like off the track, and recounting him a story of the 1999 Mountain Bike World Championships, where I came from the finish and I got pushed off and came second. Long story short, for me, the yellow jersey isn't won until you cross the finish line, and I've always been like that. But I've lost big races so close to the finish line, so I didn't sort of even allow myself to relax and enjoy myself until we crossed the finish line. So that was then, from that moment onwards, it was enjoyment. But because of these past experiences, I was like, it's not over till it's over. It's not over till it's over. And I don't think anyone's lost the yellow jersey on the last day, but I just rather have it secured, home and safe.
Only Fignon, but that was a time trial.
It's a slightly different situation, yeah. On the Champs-Élysées, no one's lost their yellow jersey, but I just want to. So I saw you. I went in the road, and it was a thing. It was one of George's last Tour de France's, so he crossed the finish line first. When we went on the Champs-Élysées, it's a bit of a thing. You let the yellow jersey team, the first passage of the Champs-Élysées, then the sprinters teams take over. And so George crossed the finish line first, and my thing was let's just stay safe and get this home. And we're going to have we didn't have any parties planned, which is the best way to do it. But I'm sure we'll enjoy ourselves afterwards. And that was but that was me as a bike rider. It's not over till it's over. Let's get this done and then look back at it later. And so, to say, I probably could have enjoyed it more, but I was more concentrated on getting the jersey safe and home, and then enjoying it. But I have to say, from that moment onwards, my life really did change. Just the way people portray you, the way people treat you, the left, right. Yeah, my life changed from that point onwards, that's for sure.
So the vision as you crossed the line, and then with your teammates, that was really special. I mean, that was, you could see the passion and enthusiasm from all of them was really something else.
They used that clip in the highlights show, in the halftime show at Super Bowl, that following Super Bowl. They used that clip of us hugging each other on the Champs-Élysées.
Ah, right.
Which I thought was great publicity for BMC. Super Bowl halftime show is the most expensive advertising in the world. Anyway, it was just, that was, in the race I was all serious in that, but afterwards I was, these guys had done it. We'd won it together, and pretty much everyone on that team had just given their all, and they were so believed in the course. But we went about it in such a calm and measured manner that it was never a stress. There was never a moment of angst. Things went wrong, and but we overcame them. We overcame them together. There was moments of panic, of course, bike chains on the telegraph there or whatever, but we came through this together, and we enjoyed each other's company the whole way through it. So that was such a special moment, and most of those guys I'm still good friends with all today, and each and every one of them, I see them regularly. I was speaking to Marcus and Bulgi the other day, and Steve Marabita, of course, of him, he's involved in the World Championships in Switzerland. That's not going to be at the end of this year, but of course, I'm still really good friends with a lot of them, with most of them today, and it just was a bit summary of us as a unit and a team together.
So then we have Tina Arena, who gets up completely on her own and sings the national anthem. Did you know that she was going to do that beforehand?
Had no idea. And like I said, from when I crossed the finish line, that my life changed. And it sort of became, go here, do this, do that, go there. And I'm sort of like, where am I going? What am I doing? And my life sort of was a bit of a rush from then on for a good few months or years. And it was all just such a moment that it's afterwards I look back and maybe sometimes I still see photos and images of it today. I was looking through some BMC literature the other day and they had a photo in the brochure, still this year's brochure of bikes, I think. There's still a photo, the image there. And I look back at it and I can be proud of it today. But it was just such a moment, and the fact that Tina Arena was there, and who she is in music and internationally, it was such a nice, neat fit. Because I was going like you and I. We came through a period in our sport where our sport was quite unknown, and for us to go to Europe, it was sort of like, you're going off over there. Because I grew up in like going to high school with all these AFL followers and things. And like, what's that sport? What are you doing? And sometimes I feel Tina Arena was a bit like that, where she was sort of, people couldn't quite understand her because there was so much more to her than what a lot of people who haven't travelled and been around the world can understand and comprehend. And so, that was it's just very dovetail fit into the.
It was special. Well, you know,
into that tour. It was a start of a new life for me. But
well, a lot of people wouldn't realise that Tina Arena was probably at that time a bigger star in France than she was here. She lived in France. She was married to a Frenchman at the time, I think, and speaks perfect French. Even had a couple of French. Yeah, she's amazing. But she saw that you got the lead on the Saturday, rang her manager, and said, "You tell the people at Tour de France, I want to come and sing the national anthem." That's how and so they went, oh, okay. So he's contacted the Tour de France organisation and they've gone, well, okay, we'll do it.
No one's ever done that.
How do we get the music? She said, don't worry about the music. I'll just sing it. And it was so good. I can remember I was standing there with Rupert and we both had severe bouts of hay fever with tears rolling out the eyes.
I think there are a few Australians who might have been fighting back a few tears. I was one of them there actually on the Schanze that day. And I was one of the things that was amazing for me was, like, as the years went by, you start to see more and more American flags, and the years went by, you saw more and more Australian flags at the tour, and especially that year, just to see all these Aussie flags and the amount of people that came up. I was just here on holiday by chance, but I saw you were going well, so we came and thought we'd see the tour. And, thanks. But there was so many Aussies there, and it was funny now. It makes you appreciate, of course, with the travel and everything going on now, just the freedom that we had. So
yes, which we might never get back. But you know, that's you touched on something there, Cadel. It's so true. SBS, it all changed in 2005 when SBS for the first time were able to go every day, so live every day for the whole Tour de France. That was great, and that got a lot of people watching the tour who watch it for the colour and Phil Liggett talking about shadows and all of that. But then you started to figure it out. You started to, before we had people winning stage, but you suddenly started to be a contender up to running second twice. But suddenly, the whole country following you, and this was a culmination of everything. So it was pretty special in lots of ways.
I think it's funny, the amount of people who tell me where they were the night of that time trial, where they were watching, who they were with, and then the amount of people that recount this to me years later, I was like, wow, this was a real amazing moment. And then I think the Age the next day in Melbourne was printed on yellow paper. It was like, well, this is something I never even dreamed would happen for our sport. But like you mentioned the SBS thing, my passion for the tour started. I had a friend, we're still good friends today. He used to come around to my house. His family didn't have a TV. He used to come around to my house in like 1991. He was a huge Greg LeMond fan and watch the tour. Come on, let's watch the tour. I want to watch the tour. Oh, yeah, okay, watch it. And I grew up in the Injerain era, but me watching the 25-minute highlight package on SBS in 1991 onwards was what, for me, that was when my Tour de France dream started. So to go that full circle 20 years later, well, they don't have 25-minute highlight packages. They had 5-hour live packages, which was just great. But it was, a whole big circle. And now years later, I go back and I've got the front page of the clip they gave it to me as a present on the office here. It's years later that we talk about that sort of, I suppose, what helps me realise, where it all went. I was a bit busy through the whole process, racing my bike to sort of realise everything that was going on. But it helps to reflect now. And I'll have to excuse me. Being in this lockdown period, you guys have maybe got a little bit more time. I've got little kids and conference calls and things to go to, so I'm just sorry, but...
All right, well, just a couple of quick ones. But I was just saying, how special was it, the Fed Square, when you came back, 30,000 people in Melbourne? That must have been something you'll never forget.
Well, I had to have a little bit of a discussion with Jim Ockowitz, the team manager, about coming back to Melbourne, firstly. Because they didn't want me to go back to Melbourne because of the travel and everything. I was like, I think they're going to do something special. I don't know what they're planning, but apparently it seems as though in Australia my efforts have been well appreciated. I had no idea. Anyway, I jump on the plane and fly back, and I come out to the airport and I ring up my mum. Everything going, but like, are people going to turn up? So I come out of the airport and there's like a 3-story high banner with a picture of me on it saying, "Congratulations, Cadel. I have a crying baby here, so I'm going to have to run." And I thought, maybe someone will turn up. And that's where my life really changed. So so it's really so we've got a crying 19-month-old here. I'm going to have to get going.
All right. Well, I'll quickly go to this. So we've just talked about this amazing trip that you've had, all the challenges you finally come through. In these troubling times, what advice have you got for anyone listening who wants to dream big or is simply low in motivation right now?
First thing I'd say, make sure you get some exercise. We had lockdown here a few months ago, similar to what you had in Australia, which isn't as severe as some other countries have had to have. Exercise, stimulate endorphins, sweat a bit. That's key, important. I'd say that to anyone. And I say that just for mental well-being. And then, of course, if you like exercising, you want to get fit, take the time to get a bit of a base of fitness. And, it doesn't take a lot. There's still a lot you can do within the confines of your house. Go onto YouTube, look for floor exercises and things. There's so much information about there. There's so much you can do, but whether you're walking, running, cycling, rollers, gym, indoor training, whatever, just do exercise. That's key to it. And I say that as someone who has been a professional athlete all my life, but someone who has to still exercise a lot just to stay sane and tolerate life. Yeah.
So the last one, who's going to win this Tour de France? Starts in a couple of days. Who's going to win it?
I'd say Bernal is the guy to beat, but I'm a big Primoz Roglic fan, and so I'm hoping for Primoz, but I think Bernal's going to on a tour that's this tough, and so even though it's nearly an uphill time trial as well, it's a climbers tour, and Bernal's going to be the man to beat. But I'm a big Primoz fan, so.
Mate, I've got to thank you. I've got to thank you very much. I know you're going to run. There was one thing that I really want to talk about, and I'll try and make it real quick. The world title you won, which was just staggering. Only Australian to win the elite pro world title. That must have been an amazing day in your hometown almost.
Yeah, funny. I was out riding yesterday, and I'm about to take my family out for a ride today. Steffi rides with an e-bike and a bike trailer with a baby in it. But I rode across the finish line yesterday because I'm still based in Switzerland. It's like 2 k's down the road. There's a roundabout there. There's traffic lights there now. You can't ride very fast through there anymore. But it was just here, and it was just I don't know without going into the details, but the Vuelta previous to that was one of the ones I look back at and think I deserved a little bit more luck there. But things turned around for me at the Worlds that year, and it was such a it was a bit that whole year had gone from the 2008 tour and the time trial that you touched on, the Suster. My team lost complete faith in me from that moment onwards. and I was just pushing, excuse the language, but I was pushing shit uphill with them from that time trial onwards, just between getting organised for the tour. And there's a team time trial. I can't win a team time trial on my own. I need the organisation of the team, and the motivation of their athletes, to have a training camp, to have all the riders for the tour free to go to a training camp and all these things. It's something that has to be organised by the team. But of course, if the team has no faith in you, they're not going to do it. And it was a bit, and so I'm like, well, I'm going to set myself one thing, and that's the Vuelta, to get ready for the Worlds was my main thing in my mind. I still went to the tour, and I still did all the work to be there good for it, but I just knew good and well.
But talking about that situation, it was the team. I know you weren't happy with the management team at that Worlds, the Australian team.
Oh, so
you weren't happy about that, I know.
More than a year that my own trade team had been spinning my face, and then I get to the Aussie team. Oh, finally I can go for a race. And they're like, nah. If this was a 3-day stage race or a 5-day stage race through mountains, we'd be all for you. But it ain't. How many one-day races have you won? As the team manager, I'm like, how many one-day races have I been able to do in the last 10 years? I think I used to do 2 one-day races a year, or 3 if I rode the Worlds. Actually, my background is actually one-day racing. I started doing stage races on the road to train for one-day races. Anyway. And
so it turned out you had problems with your earphones. They didn't work that day, I hear.
Well, they never do at the Worlds. There's too much interference because the Worlds are normally in the city. But fortunately, they didn't work that day either. And I just went and did my own thing, and same thing, just stay calm. People trying to make you nervous and upset you and trying to do their own thing and go against, team orders and agreements and things. Stay calm, let the hills sort them out. And, stay calm because you're going to need it. And that's when I think 6.8 Ks to go. I'm like, I wouldn't be giving me it was when they, I think it was Galibier was trying to get the Spanish guy to close on me. And I'm like, I wouldn't be giving me a metre here if I were you. And 6.8 Ks, I don't care if I never pedal another day in my life. I'm putting everything down on those 6.8 Ks to the finish line. And I did.
You did a superb ride. Look, Cadel, thanks heaps. I've really enjoyed today. It's been a very, very entertaining an hour and a bit. So good luck. I hope the weather in Switzerland keeps nice for you. And we might give you a chat during the Tour de France and get a little update from you.
We probably should catch up again. Sorry, you're catching me in between. It's summer holidays here and I've got kids and things to entertain and look after. So let's catch up again a little bit later. And thanks for having me on, and just everyone in Melbourne there, just try and take the time to look after yourself. And my thing is, do exercise and a bit of physical activity for you, even if it's just for your mental well-being. Please look after yourselves, stay strong. It's nearly over, and trust me, I think Australia is going to be so much better off in like a month from now. You're going to be so much better off than so many other places in the world. So
thanks, Cadel. Thanks, mate.
Take
Bye.
care, guys. See you, mate. Bye.